What is up, you maidenless tarnished? This video has been a long time coming, in my opinion. I've been thinking about making this video for weeks now, and it will basically be me talking about my journey through the land between and what it took to achieve this beautiful little platinum trophy. Before we begin actually talking about the trophies that I got, let me give a brief overview of the requirements needed. There's 42 total trophies, 3 gold, 14 silver, and 24 bronze, and of course, 1 platinum. There are 3 separate endings you have to achieve, 30 bosses, 9 legendary armaments, 6 legendary ashen remains, 7 legendary sorceries and incantations, and 8 legendary talismans. Now, you might be surprised by the amount of people that have this platinum. 38.4% of players who own the game have the platinum, which sounds like a lot, but that's because From Software players are animals and they will platinum it, and so are platinum hunters. And it took me approximately 94 hours to complete, but that's actually playing. There are months in between where I did not play, so whatever. Let's go ahead and get into it. My journey begins like everybody else's Elden Ring journey does. Character creation. Unfortunately, I don't have any gameplay saved of my first couple playthroughs. I do have a little picture of my character, which I'm going to put on the screen now. However, my original ugly, disgusting bastard of a character is lost forever. I don't remember much of the beginning of my journey with Logan and Bryant because it was in June 2024, so I'll just skim through my first 4 trophies. Basically, they helped me defeat Margit. I stopped at the Round Table Hold. We beat Leonine Misbegotten, which gave me the Grafted Blade Greatsword, one of the legendary armaments I was going to need later on. And then we took down Godric the Grafted. I then started playing again in December 2024 because my Twitch chat bribed me with a little bit of cash. And as I started going through my VODs, I realized I don't have all of those. So I'll try to remember most of what happened. My friend Mobbot had to restart his playthrough, so we played together and helped each other advance through. While doing this, a viewer of mine, one of them who paid me money, Globster, aka Relating Lobster, he joined in to help. He carried us quite a way through, defeating the Red Wolf of Radagon, which was another trophy, and then he gave us a bunch of runes to advance our levels. Way too many, by the way. We're overpowered at this point, so we swept past Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, getting a trophy, along with the Great Rune Trophy. Defeating Renala gave me the opportunity to respec in the future, which I did. Later on, not now, not at this point, I should say. I continued solo to defeat Royal Knight Loretta, netting another trophy. Then together, Mobbot and I beat the Ancestor Spirit for another trophy. I moved on by myself once more and attempted many times to defeat the Crucible Knight and the Misbegotten Warrior, who preceded the fight to Radahn. After the 50 or so, 100 maybe, failed attempts, I recruited Globster to return and carry me through them. And then I took on Radahn, quote-unquote, solo. I put solo in quotes because I used the NPCs allowed for the fight, which were Blade, the Goat, Iron Fist Alexander, Patches, Great Horned Tragoth, Finger Maiden Theralina, Castellan Jaren, Lionel the Lionhearted, and Okina. On the 3rd attempt of this summon simulator, as we called it, the summons beat Radahn and gave me a nice silver trophy. After this fight, I moved to Nokron Eternal City and beat my own ass to get the Mimic Tier Ash, along with another trophy, which was beating the Mimic Tier. However, I didn't know that you needed the Spirit Calling Bell to actually use ashes, so I was suffering for quite some time before I realized that. Then Mobbot Bryant returned, and I beat the Regal Ancestor Spirit for the next trophy. While doing all of this, by the way, I was working on the 3 endings, basically doing Ranni's ending and then working on the Frenzied Flame ending and the regular ending. Then we moved I moved on to the Lake of Rot to fight Estelle, Naturalborn of the Void. This is when I learned how to summon an Ash to help me fight, which made this a lot more of a tolerable platinum grind. I then traveled to Leyndell to take down the spirit version of Godfrey, and then with my Mimic and Melina's help, I defeated Morgott. With these 2 trophies out of the way, I snatched the only missable item that I needed, the Bolt of Grandsax, which was needed before I killed Malekith in the future. I went back to a fight that I had a lot of trouble with earlier in the game, the Valiant Gargoyles. With the help of my Mimic this time, and the Beholder of Death, we dominated the Gargoyles. I then went back to Necron to defeat the Dragonskin Soldier of Noxtella. And then at this point I was sailing through the game a little bit. I followed guides to help me through all the playthroughs and all that nonsense, which led to me to finishing Fia's questline. I didn't mention her. I'm not going to mention anybody in this video unless they come up at this point, because I'm lazy. And at this point I defeated the Lick Dragon Fortisax, traveled underneath Leyndell to fight Moog the Omen, which caused me to switch up off of my usual weapon loadout. I was using double whips. Turns out they're not good, so I switched off of those. Editor Boorad here. I'm an idiot. I did not switch off of my double whips after this fight. It was quite some time in the future that I did. So, just a little tidbit there. Sorry. Then finally, after defeating him, I finished the requirements for the Lord of the Frenzied Flame ending, but I didn't do it yet. I'm going to wait to do that for when I do the endings. After defeating Moog and unlocking some of the Great Rune's powers, which I didn't know how to do originally, I traveled to the Forbidden Lands and attempted to fight the Fire Giant many times. I gave up after a couple tries, probably 20, and started leveling up a bit. I learned that the GOAT, Iron Fist Alexander, was summonable for this fight, so I did his quest line, and he helped me finally beat the Fire Giant and get the trophy. I went up onto that kiln, and a cutscene with Melina saw me set the Erd Tree on fire. And after this, I got teleported to Farum Azula. And while doing all of this, by the way, the last few trophies, I was searching for the legendary armaments and finding as many as possible, which were the Sword of Night and Flame in Carrion Manor, the Dark Moon Greatsword, received after completing Randy's questline, and the Devourer's Scepter, which I looted off the corpse of the War Master. The reason I did that and killed the War Master was because in the future you can get it later on, but it's also could be a glitched trophy, so I just went with the simple route and killed the guy. I also searched for Ashen Remains that I needed and grabbed the Redmane Knight Oga from Radahn's battlefield. Sorry, a little mess up there. The Ancient Dragon Knight Kristoff from Sainted Heroes Grave in Altus Plateau. Lutel the Headless from Tombsword Catacombs in South Limgrave. And Cleanrot Knight Finley in Afiel. And of course, finding all the sources and incantations needed, which were Ranni's Dark Moon for completing her questline, the Founding Rain of Stars in Heretical Rise, Comet Azure from the Sorcerer Azure in Hermit Village, Grail's Roar in Caelid after defeating the Giant Dragon, Flame of the Fell God in Malefactor's Evergal, I don't know how to pronounce that, and Stars of Ruin in Celia Hideaway, which you needed Comet Azure to do. And then finally, I searched for the talismans that were needed. Radagon's Icon in Liurna. Radagon's Soreseal in Caelid. Goffrey Icon in the Golden Lineage Evergol. And the Moon of Noxtella in Noxtella. I then made my way to the Altus Plateau using the quote-unquote fun method with the Virgin Abductor. It took me many tries. Don't ask how. And then I fought Elimer of the Briar to get another trophy and a legendary armament, Marai's Executioner Sword. The next boss I took on was Commander Nile in Castle Sol, And then I went to the Church of the Eclipse to grab the legendary armament, the Eclipse Shotel? I don't know. I made my way to the next boss and defeated the Magworm Makar. And after that, I found the final armament I needed after defeating a Misbegotten in the mini dungeon in the Cave of the Forlorn. I went into the Volcano Manor and did some tasks for that queen before finding the Godskin Noble and defeating him for my next trophy. After which I upgraded my 2 colossal weapons to the max and got the trophy Godslaying armament. I then teamed back up with my boy Mobod and we defeated Ricard on each other's playthroughs and got that trophy. And the next day, on my own, I traveled to Michaela's Haligtree and defeated Loretta, Knight of the Haligtree, for the next trophy. I found 2 of the talismans needed in the Haligtree, Marika's Sword Seal and the Dragon Crest Greatsword Talisman. I made my way to the Ringleader's Evergoal to attempt to defeat the Black Knife Assassin. After a few painful attempts, I finally defeated her to snatch the final Ashen Remain I needed for that trophy. Then came the fight everyone warned me about and everyone was waiting to watch. Melania. It's not Trump's wife, not Melania, guys. After many failed attempts, I switched up my summons, switched up my build, and raged a couple times. I finally beat her using the Blasphemous Blade and my Mimic, Ash. I then went back to Farum Azula and defeated, in my opinion, the worst boss fight in the game, the Godskin Duo, which, if you don't know, is the Noble and the Apostle at the same time. I traveled to Mogwin Palace, and after a couple attempts, I was able to take down Shardbearer Moog for the next trophy. Then I went back to the Deeproot Depths and grabbed the Elden Stars, the final incantation I needed. At this point, I'm in the final stretch. I went back to Farum Azula, found the Old Lord's Talisman, fought a Draconic Tree Sentinel before defeating Malekith the Black Blade. In my opinion, the Tree Sentinel was harder than Malekith. And then I got transported to Lanedale Ashen Capital. At this point, I was able to find Erdtree's Favor +2, which is the final talisman needed for that trophy. I went back to Farum Azula to defeat Dragonlord Placidusax. Then came the final stretch. Heading back to the capital, I met with this fellow who's been helping me throughout the game just a little bit, Gideon Ofnir. He wanted to fight me for some reason, so I kicked his ass. Didn't get a trophy. But then, the next fight against Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, did give me a trophy. The trophy was Haro the Warrior or something. Hold on, let me look that up. Harolu Warrior. After this fight, I made it to the end, which was a double fight. First against Radagon, and then against the Elden Beast. After beating this monstrosity, I was finally able to get the first ending I wanted, Age of the Stars, which was Ranni's ending. I decided not to replay the game 2 more times, because I'm a bum, and I saved scum and did the last 2 endings, Elden Lord and Lord of the Frenzied Flame. And after that trophy, my beautiful little platinum popped, and I finished Elden Ring. Now, like I said, I'm going to put this game's definitely going to go in first until I bring in some more games that I platinumed, which this was my 92nd platinum, I believe. So there's a few more I got to talk about, which you'll see the little ranking here. But with that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on stream or in the next video. Peace out.